Hello mga ka-learners! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we will be studying poetry. Have you ever read a poem or listened to someone read a poem? How different is it from a prose? Can you also learn good values from poems? In the other lesson, you learned all about prose and some of the good values you can get from reading them. This time, you will learn about poetry and the good values you can get from them. After this lesson, you should be able to: number 1, analyze the messages conveyed by some works of poetry, and number 2, determine the values they impart. Read the eulogy and answer the questions that follow. A Eulogy of Roaches. Blessed are the cockroaches. In this country, they are the citizens who last. They need no police to promulgate their peace because they tolerate each other's smell and greed. Friends to dark and filth, they do not choose their meat. Although they neither sow nor reap, a daily feast is laid for them in the rooms and kitchens of their pick. The roaches do not spin, and neither do they weave. But note the russet coat the sluggards wear. Clothed at birth, roaches require no roachy charity. They settle where they wish and have no rent to pay. Eviction is a word quite meaningless to them who do not have to own their dingy crack of wall. Not knowing death or taxes, they increase and multiply. Survival is assured. Even the jobless roach, his opportunities pile up where garbage grows. Dying is brief and cheap, and thus cannot affright. A whiff of toxic mist, an agile heel, a stick, the swift descent of pain is also final death. Their annals may be short, but when the simple poor have starved to simple death, roaches still circulate in the cupboard of the rich, the strong, the wise, the dead. Number 1, why are cockroaches blessed or lucky? Number 2, to what are cockroaches being compared to? Number 3, what is the message of this eulogy? Number 4, what values does this eulogy impart? Compare your answers with mine. The cockroaches are said to be blessed because they have a lot to be thankful for. They do not have to have their own houses, for they can live wherever they want. They do not have to work because they can eat every time they get hungry. They just have to look for scraps in their hosts' houses. They can exist even after their hosts die. The cockroaches were compared with the citizens who last no matter what. They survive no matter how hard a life they are given. This poem teaches us to be like the cockroaches, surviving no matter how hard life gets. That is not to say, though, that we should be pests like them. But maybe we should be thankful for what we've got, no matter how little that may be. We should appreciate whatever little we've got and not whine all the time about what we don't have. The poem A Eulogy of Roaches by Bienvenido Lumbera is a fine example of how poetry can use symbolisms to make comments about human life. A cockroach was effectively compared to a person facing the struggles and hardships that come with living here on earth. Poetry refers to writings that formulate a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience in language, chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, sound, and rhythm. A poem, on the other hand, is a composition in verse. It is an example of poetry. A eulogy is another example of poetry. It is a commendatory formal statement of set oration, as in the example in the previous activity, which praises or commends cockroaches. Read the next poem and answer the questions that follow. Richard Cory. Whenever Richard Cory went to town, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from sole to crown, clean-shaven and imperially slim, and he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked, but still fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In sum, we thought that he was everything to make us wish we were in his place. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without the meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. Number 1. How was Richard Cory described in the poem? Number 2. Why do you think Richard Cory killed himself? Number 3. What lessons does this poem impart? Compare your answers with mine. Richard Cory was a perfect gentleman. He was always properly dressed and had everything a person could ever want. He was very well admired and well liked because he was humble even if he had everything. Apparently, even though the people thought Richard Cory had everything, he didn't. He wasn't happy with his life. This poem teaches us all to be contented with what we have. That is not to say, though, that we shouldn't admire other people. Wanting to be like others, especially those who we think are better people than we are, is good. But we should still be thankful for what we have, because nothing in this world is perfect. Now, on to the next poem. Read it and answer the questions that follow. Education gives luster to the motherland. Wise education, vital breath, inspires an enchanting virtue. She puts the country in a lofty seat of endless glory, of dazzling glow, and just as the gentle auras puff, do brighten the perfumed flower hue. So education, with a wise guiding hand, a benefactress, exalts the human band. Man's placid response and earthly life to education he dedicates. Because of her, art and science are born. And as from the high mount above, the pure rivulet flows, undulates, so education beyond measure gives the country tranquility secure. The poem focuses on the importance of education. According to it, education is important because it can bring pride not only to oneself or one's family, but to one's country as well. With good education, one can accomplish lots of things that can make him or her an asset to his or her country. The poem teaches us that we should value what we learn, for they can be our salvation. The poem, Education Gives Luster to the Motherland, was written by Jose Rizal when he was only 16 years old. It tells us about his views on how important education is to him and how much he values doing everything for his country. Here's an excerpt from another poem by Jose Rizal. In the beautiful east where rises the sun, a beautiful land so full of charms. With fetters strong, the tyrant o'erwhelms. Alas, it's my land, the country I love. In the beautiful east, where rises the sun, the land I adore, so full of charms. In chains does moan, 'tis dying like a slave, blessed by the one who can set her free. What is the subject of the poem, and what lesson does it impart? The poem is all about our country and how it suffered under the rule of our foreign oppressors. It tells us how much Jose Rizal loved his country and encourages us to be like him. It teaches us how to be nationalistic and courageous in the face of oppression, no matter what. We only have one country, and we should cherish it. The poem was written by Jose Rizal during the Spanish regime. It tells us about his thoughts on our becoming slaves to our Spanish oppressors then. It encourages the people then and now even to fight for their rights, especially since they are the citizens of this country. This poem is similar to the two most famous novels of Rizal, the Noli Me Tangere and the El Filibusterismo. From the poems that you have read in this lesson, you will see that poems and other forms of poetry teaches us a lot of values that can make us better people. It's time for a self-quiz. Read the poem and answer the questions that follow. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at the close of the day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave, crying out bright, their frail deeds night have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in fight. And learn, too late, they grieve it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men, near death, who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now, with your fierce tears I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Number 1, what is the poem about? Number 2, what does rage against the dying of the light mean? Number 3, what lessons does this poem impart? Compare your answers with those in the matching answer key of this lesson when you sign in to your online LMS account. How well did you do? In summary, poetry refers to writings that formulate a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience in language, chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, sound, and rhythm. A poem is a composition in verse. A eulogy is a commendatory formal statement of set oration. That's the end of our lesson on poetry, mga ka-learners. I hope that you enjoyed and gained new insights to help you read and understand texts better. For even better understanding, go and log on to your online account where you can read and learn better. See you on the next episode.